Hey everybody! Welcome to another Mythos Monday coming at you from Magic and Mythos. Today we are on part 1 of our A to Z Celtic mythology. Thanks for watching! The first A level person we are going to be discussing is Barta. Not to be confused with Abertach, an Irish legend of similar pronunciation. In Celtic mythology, Abarta, also Abartach, possibly meaning doer of deeds, was in some accounts one of the Tuath Danann and in others Fomorian, and is associated with Fionn mac Cumshael. One tale of Abarta's trickery is where he offered himself as a servant to Fionn mac Cumshael shortly after mac Cumshael was succeeded his father as leader of the Fianna, a band of mighty Milesian warriors. In a gesture of goodwill, Abarta then gave them a wild grey horse, which 14 Fianna had to mount onto its back before it would even move. After Abarta had mounted behind Fianna on the horse, it galloped off, taking the warriors to the other world where Tuath Danann had been driven underground by the Milesians. The Fianna, led by Fionn mac Cumshael's assistant Fulor, had to acquire a magical ship to hunt down Abarta's steed. Fultor, being Fionna's best tracker, managed to navigate the other world where Abarta had made to release the imprisoned Fianna warriors and satisfy honor. Had to hold on to the horse's tail and be dragged back to Ireland. Abarta was later rejected from being allowed to join the Fianna over this incident. Moving on to Abcan. In Irish mythology, Abcan, modern spelling Abcan, was the dwarf poet and musician of the Tuath Danann, the early Celtic divinities of Ireland. He was said to have a bronze boat with a tin sail. In the story of the death of the goddess Ruadh, Abcan, the dwarf that ferries her from the other world to this one so that she can seduce the human Aed Suronmar. The sounds of mermaids singing, or in other versions, music from a fairy mound, caused her to leap into the water and drown. In another story, Abcan is captured by the hero Cuchulainn. He frees himself by playing lullabies so irresistible that the warrior goes to sleep. Abcan has much in common with and may be another name for the dwarf musician Fuire. I probably butchered many names in that, so I apologize for any and all butchered names in this recording. Abian. In Irish mythology, Abian, or in the Irish pronunciation, Abjan, which I completely just butchered, son of Bechthelmus, was a poet of the Tuath Danann, and in particular of Lugh. He was killed by Oengus in front of Midir, according to a poem by Fland Manastrich in Liber Gabala Aren. Next up, we have Aid. Aid, or Iod, is the prince of the Denoin Sith and a god of the underworld in Irish mythology. He is known from inscriptions as the eldest son of Lir, High King of the Tuath Danann, and Ob, a daughter of the Bod Dearg. Aid is elsewhere described in the Dind Shinas as being the Dagda's son and brother of Kermit and Angus, killed by Corshen or Kuresh for seducing Corshen's wife. As son of the Dagda, Aid, described as faultless and a bright-faced youth, was reportedly killed on Ben Baith by Corgend of Kuresh and buried at Elesh of Imshel. Corgend killed Aid for having an affair with Corgend's wife, Tethra. Corgend is described as a hero, swift of hand, and every man's foe who could not find rest and refuge in fields, wood, or sea, or anywhere under the white sun after killing Aid. The Dagda cursed Corgend so that he could not remove Aid's body from his back until he found an appropriate stone to mark Aid's grave. The Dagda, described as the king of the Tuath Danann, pursued Corgend until he was storm-beaten, then forced Corgend to dig Aid's grave. Here, Aid is explicitly described as son of the Dagda and brother of Agnes and Kermit. Next up, we have Angus. In Irish mythology, Angus, or Ongus, also called Macind Oic, is one of the Tuath Danann and probably originally a god associated with youth, love, summer, and poetic inspiration. The god of the Dagda and Boann, Angus is also known as Macin Oak, the young boy or young son, and corresponds to the Welsh mythical figure Mabon and the Celtic god Mapanos. He plays a central role in 5 myths reported by medieval Irish texts. His family. Angus's parents were the Dagda and Boann, and his foster father was variously Elkmar or Midir. He was said to have lived at New Grange by the River Boyne, where he raised Manann's blonde-haired daughter, Kirkad, as his foster. In the folklore of Scotland, Angus is the husband of Brigid and son of the Beara, the fairy queen of winter. His siblings include Aid, Kermit, Bod, Durg, and Brigid. Angus is the foster father and protector of Diarmuid, Ua, Du Bahane of the Fianna. He rescues Diarmuid and Grain during their pursuit of the Fianna after Diarmuid's death. Angus takes his body back to the Brú na Bóinne, where he breathes life into when he wishes to speak with Diarmuid. According to Death, Tales of Tuath Danann, Angus kills his stepfather Elkmar in retaliation for killing Midir. The physical description of Angus. In a late folk tale recorded in Scotland, the following physical description is provided. Then Angus mounted his white steed and rode eastward. He was clad in raiment of shining gold, and from his shoulders hung his royal robe of crimson, which the wind uplifted and spread out in gleaming splendor. Then a bard composed the following song about Angus. Angus has come, the young, the fair, the blue-eyed god with golden hair, the god who to the world doth bring this morn the promise of the spring. In Irish mythology, the Dagda had an affair with the river goddess Buan, wife of Nectin. To hide her pregnancy, the Dagda makes the sun stand still for 9 months so that Angus is conceived, gestated and born in a single day. When he comes of age, Angus dispossesses the Dagda of his home. Brún na Bóinne, an area of the Boyne Valley that contains the passage tombs Newgrange, Noth, and Doth. He arrives after the Dagda divides his land among his children, and because nothing is left for Angus, Angus asks his father if he may live in the Brún na Bóinne for a day and night, to which Dagda agrees. Irish has no indefinite article, so a day and night is the same as a day and night, which covers all time. So Angus takes possession of Brún na Bóinne forever. In another, and probably the original, version of the story, appearing in the wooing of Etain, it is the Dagda who helps his son Angus take Brún na Bóinne from Alkmaar with the same semantic ruse. In this version, Midir is Angus's foster father, while Alkmaar is the husband of Boann, cuckolded by the Dagda. This tale probably dramatizes the idea that blooming of youth denies the process of aging. At the useful stage of the lifetime passes slowly and vitality seems to be permanent. In the fosterage of the House of the Two Pails, a similar story is related in which Manan MacLir, called the High King over all the Tuatha, convinces Agnes to cast a spell by reciting a poem called Luck and Prosperity to his foster father Alkmaar. The spell forces Alkmaar from the brew until Ogham and Pillar, heaven and earth, and the sun and the moon have blended together. Alkmaar then tells Agnes that he would have given him the brew if he had but asked, but due to Manan's incantation, he and his people will face woe and madness for the rest of their days. In this telling of the story, Agnes expresses remorse for banishing Alkmaar and his people. Agnes kills Lug Lamhafaraz, poet, for lying about his father Ogma An Cumaict. The poet claims that Ogma An Cumaict had an affair with one of Lug's wives. In the wooing of Etain, Agnes is able to partially lift a spell against Etain. The horse goddess he won for his brother Midir. In a jealous rage, Midir's wife, Fug Namash, turns Etain into a beautiful fly. Returning Etain into her human form at night, Agnes makes her his lover until Fungnama discovers the secret and drives Etain away. Agnes kills his foster mother for her treachery. In another tale, Agnes falls in love with a girl he sees in his dreams. His mother Boann, goddess of the river Boyne, and cow goddess whose milk formed the Milky Way, Bulach na bo fin, or the white cow's way in Irish, searches Ireland for a year. Then his father, the Dagda, does the same. Finally, King Bod Durg of Munster finds her after a further year. Agnes visits the lake of the dragon's mouth and finds 150 girls trained in pairs, including Care Ebermorth, the girl from his dreams. Among them, every second, Samhain, Care, and the other girls transform into swans for a year. Agnes is told he can marry Saer if he can identify her in a swan form. Agnes turns himself into a swan and then fly away, singing beautiful music that puts all who listen to sleep for 3 days and nights. In other legends, Agnes is able to repair broken bodies and return them to life. Similarities have been observed between Agnes and the Greek god Hermes. In the folklore of Scotland, Angus is the fairest son of the Beara, who rules over winter. Angus remains in Tirnanog all winter until he has a dream of Bridget that compels him to search the land for her. Bridget was held in captivity by the fairy queen, who envied her beauty and forced Bridget to complete impossible chores. Angus finally leaves Tirnanog on his white steed by borrowing 3 days from August in order to search for Bridget. After searching everywhere, he eventually finds Bridget in Beara's underground palace just as spring is happening. When they meet on Imbolc, flowers begin to blossom and the grass grows, and Bridget's shabby clothing is transformed into white robes with silver spangles, and her hair is garlanded with spring and summer flowers. Angus marries Bridget in a wedding feast, which is disrupted by Beara, who chases them off with storm clouds on her black steed. Eventually, Beara grows old and weak and has to return to the Well of Youth for rejuvenation, where she again falls asleep, and Angus and bride become the king and queen of summer. In another folklore, it is related that Beara's son Angus contradicts all of his mother's orders in an effort to become king of the universe. Angus is weak-minded and light-headed, and in punishment, Beara traps her son in the rocks, where he is forced to repeat the words of others, i.e., echo. His possessions. Angus owns a sword named Moraltac, the Great Fury, given to him by Manan MacLir. This he gave to his foster son, Diarmuid u Dubine, again with a sword named Bealgatac, the Little Fury, and 2 spears of great power, Guy Buid and Guy Durg. In Scottish folklore, Angus possesses a golden harp with silver strings, and when he plays it, maidens and youths follow the music through the woods. He also kisses lovers, and when the lovers part, the kisses become invisible birds that follow the lovers home, singing love songs and whispering memories in their ears. Similarly, in the Didsachas, Angus shapes his kisses into 4 birds that followed Cairbre to mock him each day before sunrise. This mockery continues until Cabri's druid enchants a tree from Fyd Frosmuin with song, which causes the tree to grow high above all others and detain Angus's birds. In some legends, Angus possesses a white horse which he rides from the land of promise during the spring. In the Disenchas, a tale called Tuag Imber is relayed in which Angus provides Ioku and Abland a swift horse while they are encamped with their cattle. He tells them to unbridle the horse in a meadow before it sheds its water, and causes their deaths. Eoshu and Abland forget to unharness the horse, and it forms a well around which Eoshu builds confinement. The poem of Lacri is nearly identical to Tuag Imber, except the character names differ and Angus is replaced by Midir. Alil Agabai. Alil Agabai, according to Libor na Huirde version of the Irish mythological tale The Wooing of Etain, is the brother of Eochaid Feidelblack, a high king of Ireland. In this tale, Alil fell in love with his brother's wife Etain, who is one of the Tuath de Danann. The Wooing of Etain. Etain had been the second wife of the Tuath de Danann god Midir. As punishment for her jealousy towards Midir's first wife, Uamak, she had been reborn as a human. High King Eochaid, having heard of Etain's beauty, brought her to his palace at Tara. Alil fell in love with Etain at the festival of Tara, after which she was wed to his brother Eochaid. Eochaid's brother Alil, having developed an unrequited love for the new queen, gradually succumbed to a wasting disease brought on by his feelings. Despite her love for her husband, Etain felt sorry for the ailing Alil, and to help save his life, promised to sleep with him. Unfortunately, Alil never arrived to the agreed place, having been cast into an enchanted sleep by Midir. Aelin. Aelin, or Aelin, is an incendiary being in Irish mythology. He played the harp and was known to sing beautiful songs. His character. Called the Burner, he is a member of the Tuath de Danann who resides in Megmel, the underworld. His deeds. According to the boyhood deeds of Fionn, he would burn Tara to the ground every year at Samhain with his fiery breath after lulling all inhabitants to sleep with his music. This only ended with the arrival of Fionn McCumhill, who inhaled the poison from his spear to keep himself awake and slew Aelin. The act won him the leadership of the Fianna. American Gluingel. American Gluingel, white knees, also spelled American Gluinheel, or Glunmar, big knee, is a bard, druid, and judge for the Malaysians in the Irish mythological cycle. He was appointed Chief Olam of Ireland by his two brothers, the kings of Ireland. A number of poems attributed to American are part of the Malaysian mythology. One of the seven sons, Mil Espain, he took part in the Malaysian conquest of Ireland from the Tuatha De Danann in revenge for their great uncle Ilth, who had been treacherously killed by the three kings of the Tuatha De Danann, Macul, Macet, and Macgreen. They landed at the estuary of Imbercene, named after Amerigan's wife, Cene, who had died at sea. The three queens of the Tuatha De Danann, Bamba, Eriu, and Fadla, gave in turn permission for Amerigan and his people to settle in Ireland. Each of the sisters required Amerigan to name the island after each of them, which he did. Eriu is the origin of the modern name Ayr, while Bamba and Fadla are used as poetic names for Ireland, much as Albion is for Great Britain. The Malaysians had to win the island by engaging in battle with the three kings, their druids, and warriors. Amerigan acted as an impartial judge for the parties, setting the rules of engagement. The Malaysians agreed to leave the island and retreat a short distance back into the ocean beyond the ninth wave, a magical boundary. Upon a signal, they moved towards the beach, and the druids of the Tuatha De Danann raised a magical storm to keep them from reaching land. However, Amerigan sang an invocation calling upon the spirit of Ireland that had come to be known as the Song of Amerigan, and he had been able to part the storm and bring the ship safely to land. There were heavy losses on all sides with more than one major battle, but the Malaysians carried the day, and the three kings of the Tuatha De Danann were each killed in single combat by three of the surviving sons of Mil, Eber, Finn, Eamon, and Amerigan. In her Gods and Fighting Men 1904, Augusta Lady Gregory translates the Song of Amerigan as such. I am the wind on the sea, I am the wave of the sea, I am the bull of seven battles, I am the eagle on the rock. I am a flash from the sun, I am the most beautiful of plants. I am a strong wild boar, I am a salmon in the water. I am a lake in the plain, I am the word of knowledge. I am the head of the spear in battle, I am the god that puts fire in the head. Who spreads light in the gathering on the hills? Who can tell the ages of the moon? Who can tell the place where the sun rests? Amerigan then divided the land between his two brothers, Eber taking the southern half of Ireland, Eamon taking the north. Within the year, Eamon defeated Eber in battle and gained the kingship of the whole island, and 2 years later killed Amerigan in another battle. Local tradition in Drogheda locates the burial place under Millmount. Some of the early medieval Welsh poems on mythological themes attributed the 6th century poet Taliesin in the Book of Taliesin have similarities to those attributed to Amerigan. The Song of Amerigan was brought to life in a 2016 film by A New Pictures. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really like magic and mythos, then go ahead and come over to my Discord channel, Magic and Mythos, for more content. Love you guys. Bye.